Hello class. Today we're going to be looking at the mannequin from the side plane. Now what that means is we've been doing a lot of work with it front on like this. This has been the shape that we've done with the rectangle. I want you to note that even if we go directly on a side plane, we're just seeing the side, still fits that rectangle, just a thinner version. But also today what I'd like to do is maybe do it on a bit more of a 3/4 look, because that's probably a little bit trickier, but also the sort of thing you might see more often. If you're starting to do your own artwork, you'll probably want it to have a little bit of shape. Now you can see still fits within a triangle, but this time we've got our rectangle. So you can see even on this angle it is still a rectangle, but it's more the rectangular prism because we're seeing part of the side like that. Okay, so let's get a start on that, shall we? Now, for those of you that are just that little bit older, I'd like to first start by saying that this is going to be whenever we create a rectangle and turn it into a rectangular prism, what we're really doing is putting it into a 2-point perspective. Let's just put that in quickly. Any younger people or anyone that don't want to know that, you don't need this part, but I'm just going to show you. So what we have drawn before has been our rectangle. And that was what we did in our basic shapes. We looked at how it was a rectangle and then we changed it and made it into a rectangular prism. So we did exactly the same rectangle, if you recall. That was our basic shape. But then what we did, we added another basic rectangle behind it. And we just did those corners all on the same length and angle. If you're trying to make it transparent, you would just keep bringing that through and across and down, same angle. And then you would have your rectangular prism. And that's what we did in our basic shapes. We took it from that to that. So today we're going to do that same thing, but I'm just going to do the quick little basics on what that looks like first, in a perspective point of view. So when we do our perspective for this one, we've still got the same thing. We've still got our horizon line, which, as you remember, was at your eye level. So whatever your eye level is when you're looking out, that's the horizon line for you. So let's start by drawing that along. So I've already drawn one here. The wider you can make that, really the better for today's lesson, because otherwise it is going to be a little bit more of an angle than we want. But once you've drawn that, just find your middle. Doesn't have to be in the middle, but I'm putting it in the middle just to have a little bit more space because I'm not as long as I'd like it to be for your demonstration. And then just like we did with the 1-point perspective, just take it to a vanishing point. The difference this time is we have a vanishing point in 2 separate areas along the horizon line. So once you've drawn your center line, just rule from that center line to the edge each way. You can make your rectangle any height. I might go 4 centimeters. And you just take it from whatever height you've picked back to that vanishing point. And you should end up with that. Okay. Now that's the first part, nice and simple. We just build on it from there. So the same as when we did our cubes. We have a vertical straight up and down line. That's going to be the front plane here. And we'll do a narrower one to represent the side right here. So there we are, we're a long way along already. To find out exactly where you should join this would be the same as we did with the single point. You get the top corner and you take it to your vanishing point. And the same with this corner. You do it with both of these that you've drawn in. So line that up with your vanishing point. Okay, so now we've done that bit, you can see that's the side plane. So like on here, we have the side here. And we can see the top here. That's what we've got here. There's our side. And there's our top. So you can see the correlation. If you were wanting to make it transparent, so we might as well put that in as well, you would just do exactly the same thing. We would repeat that. We would take this corner to the back and this corner to the back. So they're both heading to their vanishing points. Helps if it doesn't slip. And then you have the base of it here as well. So now you can see where the bottom of it is. All we just need to do now is connect that line down there. And there it is. A completely transparent piece for you to do. Now I'll just take that bottom off so that it's not confusing to you, as if it wasn't see-through, but there you go. So that's it, and that's what we're going to draw. So if you don't want to do all of that, if you don't want to really learn your perspective on that, then you can go straight into what we're about to do now. So what I've done, that was just to show you how the angles really are if you're doing something more advanced. But for the rest of you, all we're going to do is our rectangle again, because like I said, even when she's on a little bit of an angle, it's still a basic rectangle. Okay. So I pre-drew mine, so it was there. So just for the amount of space I've got, I've gone with the 1 in 8 being the head 2 centimeters. And so what I've got is mine 16 centimeters long. So if you want to do that, just draw a line 16 centimeters for the side of your rectangle. Remember to mark the head is at 2. So put a little point for 2, and halfway is 8, so put that in for your center. So all you need is your rectangle. I did mine, I think it was 3 centimeters wide. Yep. So when I joined them, I had 3 centimeter gap between them. So mine is actually 3 centimeters by 16. So once you've got that front rectangle drawn with the back, it's really like you see here and here, it's really just another rectangle behind it. So allow some space, about 1 centimeter, and rule yourself that back rectangle to make a rectangular prism. Put your sides in. Your 4 even sides, and then you can join that up. I've got about 1/2 centimeter raised area on mine, so the base would be about the same. You'd have about 1/2 centimeter should be correct, and that should join these two. And we came in 1 centimeter there, so probably do the same on this side. That should square it all up for you. So what we have at the front, we have a rectangle that is 3 by 16, And then at the back we have another one that is 3 by 16. If you wanted to completely square that, you can actually do, we have it measurements at 0, 2, 8 and 16. You can actually do that on this back one as well. Mark your 2, your 8, your 16 should be at the bottom. And if you ruled that along, you should see the same as the bottom. You could even put those sides in on that same angle. And now you have created your prism like so. Good. Now you can see it's three-dimensional all the way along. Okay, so now let's put our mannequin in that space. Now, for those of you that were doing the perspective part, you'll see on this one that the base is a little bit wider than the top. So if that was confusing to you, I'm just doing the simple version now for anyone that doesn't want to do that. So we're keeping ours 2 rectangles the same, but if you're in perspective, it actually would be a slight variation. Not a lot though, because the angle we're on has a lot more distance than that does. So the variation is all not very much when you've got this tall and that thin. Okay, let's go. So I'm going to put our mannequin's head in first, so that takes up that whole 2 centimeters. Around here, because we're working 3-dimensionally now, would be where you would see the top of the head. Now I'm going to draw this probably a little bit wider than it is, just so you can see it clearer. But what you can do is find about your center here. It's a little bit further over really, but find about the center of this rectangle, just to give you a bit of a guideline as to where to put it. And let's just draw in the head. So it's finishing here. Would be a little bit less for those of you that are older, but just for some of our beginners, let's go from there right down to this line basically. And there's our head. Because we're looking down, instead of it being straight, you could curve that a little bit. There's our head, so then let's put in our neck, coming just below that line. If that's strong enough for you to see, I'm going to try and make that a bit darker looking. Okay, now because we're looking down a little bit, the shoulders, you see actually some of the shoulders, so see how that creates a bit of an oval or rectangle? Let's put that in next. Now we don't want to go all the way to these 2 edges because we need room for the shoulders. So let's bring it, we'll draw the front of it first, so bring it a bit lower than the neck and over like so. And then we'll take it a little bit behind and put it like so. I'll just square it off pretty much for now. That will probably make it easier for you to, but really it is a bit more rounded than that. Okay. Now our waist is halfway between these 2. So we have got a gap there of 6 centimeters. So at about 3 centimeters here is our waist area. This is where we will come down with our chest. Now I'm going to do this at the front first, and then I will do the side like so. Once you've done that, we'll put in, if you're following suit, curving it down a little bit because we're looking down, and you can see it's quite straight when you're looking straight on, but when you're looking down, it does, you can see that curve more. So let's do that little bit of a curve there for it. Next we have the waist, so let's put that in as well. We'll include the side, and then we will put the abdominal region of the mannequin in. Again, we'll put it like so. If you want, you can curve that bottom down a little bit. And then we'll draw that side plane in again, a bit exaggerated, but just so that you can see what we're doing here. So that would mean the abdomen is here and the chest area will be around here. Yeah? So that's our top half of our mannequin done. We're really just turning it a little bit so that you can just see part of both areas, yeah? So let's move on. So the legs are the latter half of the area. Put in the ball joint for the leg. You won't see the whole circle because we're looking down a little bit. And then you can, if you're doing your legs straight, you can do like we've done all the way through, just rule it down. Find your halfway mark. Again, this is 8 centimeters, so halfway is at 4 here. This is where you can place your knees. And then we do our cylinders. So the cylinders, for those of you, for just your little reminder, we did those when we did the basic shapes. We also did the cylinder. So we started off with it just like a rectangle, and then we curved it, same thing, top and bottom. This is the angle that we're looking at with our mannequin, those downhill slopes, facing down slopes because of the fact we're looking down. So let's bring that down next. That would be your leg, first leg. Then you can do the other leg. Now, although in reality you wouldn't see a side plane because it's a cylinder, it really just has more shading. If the light was this side, let's just put a side plane in. It'll make your leg a bit thicker, but let's just put it in so that you're getting the idea of it being three-dimensional at this point. So give yourself an extra side plane anyway. Just on this side. There's your kneecap, so we'll bend it down, kneecap. And let's put the last part of him in. So we'll put in the ankle, obviously higher than the ground is. And let's draw that in. Just our cylinder again. Down to our ankle. Again, we'll draw in a side plane, even though it really is more of a shadow, just so that you're thinking. You can also draw these quite boxy. You could have drawn it where the legs are actually done on those sort of angles. You can box them in, put in your kneecaps, and then even going narrower. You can do those little box versions too if you wanted, when you were, if you're really trying to look at where, bring the foot down like so. You can do a boxier version, but we're keeping it rounded, but we're just drawing those in to see. Okay, so we're seeing more of this shoulder joint. So let's put here the shoulder. Elbow, so if we're drawing it straight down, elbow around the waist region. Cylinder. It's going to take off, it's going to cover part of that side of the body. The hand is under this line, remember? So bringing that around and down. And then the hand. And that side's done. The second little plane, just because we're doing that. We'll put a second little line of plane there. Clear up some of that pencil. Okay, now with the other shoulder, because the mannequin's actually on an angle, depending on how much it is, this is true for people too. So straight on, you see both of the shoulders. As you turn it, you see less and less, and if you go like that, you don't see any. But we're going to create it like that, so you do see a little bit of that shoulder and a little bit of the arm popping through. So when you do it, it's part of that overlapping we looked at, so just a little bit of shoulder there, and then the elbow here, part of that arm coming through, part of that other half of the arm coming down, and part of the hand there disappearing around the back. Once you've done that, we'll put the feet in. We'll just bring the feet forward. So you should have your ankle and your feet in there. And that, because our face is 3/4, we'll have this side a fair bit showing. This side will disappear into that side plane. And that is your completed mannequin. So we've now drawn him like that, and we've got our side plane as well, and our elongated version. So from now on, it doesn't matter what angle you're on, so even though we've got that on that side angle, yep, we've done it like that just so you can see it within the square, but obviously you could have been moving any of the arms, anything around, and that's actually a good practice to do even a 3/4 one with moving some of the elements, doing it from either side, those of you that have your own mannequins, and just drawing them as you see them. You can then do a more accurate representation when you've actually got your mannequin there. As I said, I've got it quite blocky just so that it's an easy explanation of how it works, but you can actually come up with some really nice ideas for that yourself. If you wanted to do a blockier version like we were doing here to make it make more sense, feel free to do that. But other than that, you're good to go. If you wanted to add a little bit of colour like we've done on some of them onto the shadow sides or anything, you can literally just put these in, and that way you can see it a little bit clearer yourself as well. It's easier to see the side planes if you have a bit of colour there on them. Virtually like when we put our shadows on, really. You don't see much of this one. Okay. Those of you, you can round off your shoulders a little bit more now if you're feeling quite confident with the way it is. And those of you that actually own mannequins, you can actually really reshape this to get that truer shape. Okay. All right then. That's your lesson, fish. I'll see you in the next lesson.